All right, since Brock and I are going to be out at Seahawks training camp tomorrow for the start of training camp, wanted to give everybody a full preview. Now, we're going to have Steve Rabel and Warren Moon in from noon to 1 tomorrow, sitting down with us in front of camp, talking about everything that the Seahawks are going to need to do. But we wanted to ask Brock here, our own resident expert, 5 important questions facing the Seahawks as we get ready for training camp. Question number 1, Brock. Of all the position battles that you look forward to, which one is going to be the closest?
The closest? Well, John Clayton, the professor yesterday, we asked him that, and he said defensive line. He wanted to see how this defensive line would look, how it would all shape out. I think I'll be watching the receiver position, because that's an area last year decimated with injuries. You bring TJ Hushmanzada on. We've talked to him plenty this offseason. He's excited about his leadership role. But it's really beyond TJ. Can Nate stay healthy? Can Deion Branch be healthy? Who out of the young guys is going to emerge and push them, grow into that role? Keith Gilbertson today thought Ben Obamanu would be a guy that would be in the mix. I think that will be a very competitive situation. Down in the last week, really fighting for a roster spot.
All right, question number 2. You've mentioned the word Brandon Mebane, 1,000 times just in the last month. You believe he's going to have a great year, but is he the guy who will have the biggest breakout season who's flying under the radar right now?
I think from a breakout standpoint, I do. I think he's going to go from 5.5 sacks because of the opportunities, if he's healthy, to 9 sacks. But the other guy offensively, last year's leading receiver, was John Carlson, the tight end, the rookie. I think within this scheme and this system, with as much play action as they're going to do, he'll be a focal point. And there's not a lot of other tight ends on this roster. Try to name me another one. You can't, right? Not a guy that's proven anything in this game. So I look for John Carlson to be the breakout player, maybe the breakout performer on this entire roster.
Running backs last year, obviously a concern, and this offensive line was beat up. The running game suffered because of it. This year, we're seeing a change. Now this team is going to go to more of a zone blocking type of a scheme. Obviously, they've had some success with that in other places, starting in Denver, and you saw it in Atlanta a couple of years ago. What do they need to do in order to make the zone blocking scheme a success here?
They all need to get on the same page. That's what they need to do. It's not a complex scheme. We've talked to a lot of linemen and coaches. You look on paper and it's not 30 pages of assignments. It's pretty simple. It's guys getting in unison, guys blocking different areas of the field, but there are nuances to that. There's a body language, there's a chemistry, it's got to develop up front. On top of that, Mike, they've got to be physical, and that's going to be tough for this line to do. A line beat up, decimated by injuries last year. Can they get on the same page? Can they learn the physical nature, the cut blocking, the things that it will require to have success? That will play itself out through these preseason games.
We can talk about all of the running backs, all of the offensive linemen, all of the defensive, all of the new coaching staff. But you know what? A lot of it's just going to come back down to one guy, and that's obviously Matt Hasselbeck, quarterback of this team. And if he's not healthy, this is not the same team. It's a good thing they have Matt and not Tim, by the way. They're not the same team.
They're not the same team.
How do you monitor his health? How do you assume his health will work out this year?
Now, if you're a Seahawks fan, I think you watch closely how many reps he gets at practice this training camp, if he's able to practice every day. When you have a back injury like Matt has had, how does his groin, how does his hamstrings, how does everything else react and handle what a training camp will bring? Because it's still 2-a-day practices. As he's gotten older, it will still be very demanding on him. But I think by and large the answer to that question will come week 1 of the preseason when he's hit by San Diego. It will come week 3 of the preseason when more than likely he'll play into the second half. How does he handle contact and collisions? That will be the key to me with his health.
All right, and finally, question number 5 for you, Brock, our expert here as we head into training camp tomorrow. There's a lot that's the same this year and is carried over from the past, but there's obviously one major difference, and that's the guy who's going to be running camp. Jim Mora really takes over his first camp for Mike Holmgren. How does camp project to be different?
I think right away schedule. You look at the schedule that Jim Mora is going to implement. They're going to have a night practice, something that Mike Holmgren never did in his 10 years in Seattle. It was an afternoon practice. It was an 8 a.m. practice, so immediately the hours will be a little differently. Also, they're here. They're not in Cheney. They're commuting from a hotel in Bellevue on a daily basis. So I think just in that way there will be some areas that will be vastly different right away for the players. As far as the tempo goes, I think that will be pushed just a little bit more too. You've seen that in mini camps. One thing all the players have talked about, their conditioning, the tempo, the pace of practice is quicker. I think in this training camp that will remain the same. I think they'll be on the field about the same. I think both Moore and Holmgren share that philosophy. They don't believe in 3-hour practices. So the reps will be maximized, the tempo will be picked up, and then the schedule will be tweaked just enough. And personally, I think that'll be healthy for this group and a group of veteran guys that they've got on this team.
We're going to get a healthy dose of training camp tomorrow as we get out there from 11 to 3. We'll have Steve Rabel and Warren Moon join us in the 12 o'clock hour. So make sure you tune in 7:10 tomorrow at 11 o'clock for the start of training camp.